Hello, hello, and welcome to Hygiene Elevated Conversations and Innovations. We are joined today by Miss Billie Lunt, all the way from New Hampshire. So, Billie, we are grateful to have you on the show today and to be able to have a conversation with you. So, I just want to start by asking you what your story is as a hygienist. How did you get into hygiene, and kind of where are you at right now?
Wow. Well, thank you for having me, ladies. It's so nice to see you, Amanda, and Joffrey together. I love what you ladies are doing. I love your
You.
podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So this is a not a long enough podcast to even say my hygiene story, but I've been an educator for 7 years. I've been a hygienist for 27 years, and I've been a podcaster for 4 years. And I'd like to say that there's a million reasons why I became a hygienist. And I did figure out along the way that you really don't figure out what you're passionate about until you master something and you
Mm,
remain curious. And that's really been my challenge. I found that I was a lifelong learner, and being a hygienist is that's probably one of the best traits of being a hygienist. You're just constantly learning, reinventing yourself, working really hard, and just I mean, you can go in so many directions as a hygienist, so there's just never enough. You just never know enough about everything, right? So you just the sky's the limit on what you can learn. And I discovered that very early on as a hygienist. So it's been a
mm.
long journey of learning, and I just still have so much to know and learn and grow about. So it's exciting. And all these years, still loving the profession.
I love hearing that because I feel like there is just not enough, or at least you hear so much of, I'm burnt out, I'm tired of the profession, or I need to do something else. And it makes me so sad because we have such a great job. We do. I mean, maybe not every workplace is the best, but I love your attitude and I love where you're at, being that lifelong learner, just staying engaged. It just keeps it fresh. And yeah, I feel like I'm at that age now where I'm like, I don't have enough time left to learn all the things that I want to know. I will
Yes.
never master everything.
Okay, on that note, Amanda, I had a patient of mine who was inquiring like should I be a dental hygienist, right? Like she's like I'm intrigued, what do you think? What's your take on it? And I'm like I I can't decide for you, but let me tell you, I love it, and she said, "You know what, Joffrey? Every time I ask a hygienist this question, they always say wonderful things about the profession. But when I look online, I read so many negative things about the profession. So I am so confused, is what she was telling me, And I said, and this is what I told her, you know how like more likely someone is to leave a bad review than a good review? I'm like, it's just human nature. Like, I'm like, so trust all the positive things you're hearing because you don't often have such a great experience. You're like, I want to go share with the world how happy I am about what I'm
Yeah.
doing. But it's a lot easier to get mad and be like, I want to get this off my chest, right? And so I'm like,
Yes.
I think they're just angry. And if you're reading those negative things, I'm like, I want you to just, think for a minute. I wonder what's going on in that person's life that would make them want to put that type of content out there. And but that was my advice. And when you said that, I'm like, oh, this reminds me of this exact conversation I had recently.
That's so true.
Well, I think any profession can have a negative side, and I could certainly choose
Mhm.
to focus on that. And really, it's the only thing we have control over, ladies, is what we focus on. And I've just chosen, boy, there's a lot of challenges being a dental hygienist because some of my core like bullet points of my life is I want to feel appreciated, I want to feel valued, I want to feel like I make a difference in the lives of other people. And if I'm not checking all those boxes, then I'm not doing the right thing. And there are days when maybe all those boxes don't get checked. But as a whole, we can always have bad days, but as a whole, we need to lift each other up and come together and see what's good about our profession. And burnout is real, man, and there's some challenges, but I do think that we have to advocate for our profession. It's pretty fantastic.
Agreed. And I think you said something earlier too. I was thinking about this earlier. You said there's so many directions that you can go into. And I wish you were there 16 years ago when I graduated. Because I remember my core group of friends. I had one guy friend, he was going into nursing. My best friend was going into not public health, oh my gosh, nonprofit management, basically. And she kind of looked at us and was like, you guys are only going to be able to do like one thing for the rest of your life. And we were both like, but we're going to make so much money right out of school and not have debt. So I didn't know all the variety that has come forth so recently, in my opinion. But just there's so many more options now. And that's been one of my absolute favorite things about doing this podcast is learning how entrepreneurial other hygienists are, other podcasters. You know, they have such a niche that I would have never thought of. Like when Joffrey suggested that we start this podcast last year, I was like, aren't there enough? Like, isn't there enough out there? Like, what are we going to have to bring to the table? And I've absolutely loved it. So, I mean, I think you said that very well. Like, there is just so much to do, but it's up to your imagination and your work ethic of where you're going to take it.
Yeah. And Billie's been a long time podcaster. Billie, will you take us down like from start to current time a little bit on your podcast?
Oh my goodness. So yeah, just to piggyback off Amanda, if you had asked me a decade ago if I was going to be a podcaster, I'd be like, what is a podcaster?
Like, is it a noun or an adjective?
Right. So in 2020, when COVID shut everybody down, I was just faced with all these students saying, what do I do next? How do I get there? What does that look like? And, you know, I was just in this really weird space as an educator because for the first time, I didn't have all the answers for students. But I did know that my freshman students needed tutors and my senior students needed support. And I was like, well, I could just record something so that they have access to it wherever they are. And so I just started, you know, Google's the fun thing. I just started Googling, how do I do this? And the podcast was born. And I actually just crossed my 4th year, which I just think is insane. And I'm just like, how did this happen? And I just recorded an episode reflecting back on just how much I've learned about myself, about the profession, about others doing really great things. Like you said, Amanda, there's so many hygienists doing so many really fantastic things out there. And it's really expanded my perspective on the profession itself, stuff that I just didn't even know. And I always put myself in the student's shoes, you know, thinking of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When you graduate, it's all about, I got to make this money so I can pay off this debt. And really, you can't get to that next step until you do that. So get out there, make the money, get the debt paid off, and then start saying, what lights me up when I'm in clinical practice? What's my favorite thing about my job? What do I love about patient care? And then start to see where you can push that and expand on that. And that's something I didn't recognize or realize when I was first a student or first graduating and a young clinician. I'd like to still think I'm a young clinician, but a younger clinician I just thought I was going to do this XYZ and then, you know, I don't know, sail off into the sunset in the Bahamas or something. But I have discovered that with each step that you take and you start to expand, you change and evolve. And then you say, oh, I've done this. Now what can I do? What else can I do? What more can I do? So it's really fabulous. And you two are great examples of that.
It's like a gateway drug. Once you do one thing, you are hooked to find another.
It's so true. Oh my gosh. So like a podcast abuser.
Yeah. It does seem like podcasters are obsessed with podcasts. I don't have much of a commute at all anymore because I'm like 4 minutes from my office. So I'm like, my downtime, whenever I like having something going in the background, like if I'm cleaning house or whatever, like doing something, I'll have a podcast going because I don't have that commute time to listen to my podcasts anymore. So
And Billie, full confession, I don't know if I've ever put this out on the podcast before, but prior to starting the podcast, I had never listened to a podcast. I just
Okay.
thought we should have one. We should do it. Like, and I didn't even know like what formats people were doing. I like what you see was just on a whim, and it's working. So for us, so we just keep rolling with it. But yeah, day one, I had never listened to a podcast.
You guys are just true confessions. So I had the Apple podcast little doohickey thing, purple thing on my phone, didn't know what it was.
there's
Love
quite
it.
a few apps that I'm like, I don't need this. I don't know. I don't need another thing. I don't need another little button to press. Thank you.
Okay, so
The tool, though,
Billie, you really spoke your transition from clinical to educational, like into existence from the very beginning of your career. And I haven't really shared that story with Amanda or all of our listeners yet. So, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to share that.
Oh, thank you, Joffrey. Yeah, it's all about manifestation. And I didn't even know when I was a young kid that the power of your own thoughts thrown out to the universe. So when I graduated from dental hygiene school, I told my mom that I was going to be a clinical hygienist for 20 years, and then I was going to go back to the school that I achieved my degree and teach there. And she said, "Okay, can you just get a job first?" And I was like, "Okay, that's such a mom thing, right?" I said, "Okay, mom, yes, I'm going to do that." And the strangest thing, so there's a lot that can happen in 20 years, as we all know. And 20 years and 3 days later, I got a job acceptance at the school that I graduated from. And I hadn't it wasn't even on my radar. My mom said, "Your dad and I were just trying to figure out, like, how did you know that? Like, how did you do that? What were you thinking 20 years ago? Like, how did that happen?" And I said, "I don't really know. I just knew that that was kind of a piece in my future down the road." I just threw out 20 years, thinking 20 years was a really long time when I was in my 20s. 20 years really isn't as you get going.
Yeah.
But yeah, so of course my mom's next question was, "So what's next? What are your plans?" And I'm like, I've kind of just opened it up to whatever happens, right? So it just expanded to having all different random goals because that one was pretty powerful. And I never really gave it a lot of thought once I started clinical practice, and it just happened to come back up in the universe, said, "Oh, remember this goal you set for yourself? Here it is. Thanks for asking."
I love it. It's one of those stories that just make you like feel good inside. You're like, oh, she said it and it happened.
I know, and
So
I just love that my mom wanted to know what else I had in store.
I'm honestly amazed that she fully remembered it 20 years later. Like maybe you just made such a bold statement. She's like, all right, whatever, file that away. But
Well, in fairness for my mom, I was one of those kids that set a lot of goals. And I was like, "I'm doing this, I'm doing that." And she saw them all happen. But that one was
oh,
probably the
okay.
biggest stretch. That was a 20-year goal. And so and she's my opposite. She's one of those people that just gets up every day and just lets life happen and is like, "Oh, look at what happened today." So she's always found me to be very uniquely different, right? So she's just like, "How is it she keeps doing that? How is that happening?" So it didn't surprise me that my mom remembered.
That's funny.
Okay, so Billie, share with us a little bit about your time as an educator. What was the change like going from clinic to working in the school? And just share some educator info with us.
Oh my gosh, it was drastic. It was so drastic. I was in so for the first 6 months, I was in complete mourning. I missed all of my patients. My poor husband had to listen to me talk his ear off every night because I I didn't talk to patients all day, so I would come home and I was like, "How was your day? How are things? Da, da, da." And my husband was just like, oh my gosh, did you not talk to a soul today? Like, what is happening?" Um, Poor guy. Being the extrovert that I am, you can't have that relationship with students that you have with patients, and I totally did not see that coming.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so that was a good transition. I got through that and I started to figure out, okay, I just need to talk to my friends more and
How
all of that stuff.
long was that transition?
It was the whole first year. I was a mess. I'm not
Oh,
gonna lie. I was my husband was great, but I was a mess. I would come home and I'm like, I need to do clinical practice maybe on a Saturday. I'm feeling like I'm missing my patients, my people. Like I wanted because you don't stay updated with them anymore. And
yeah.
with students, there's a huge barrier between you and students. So I just had to shift my mindset. So then I started really focusing on students' needs, which is what makes us great as a hygienist, right? We focus on our patients' needs. And I say, okay, what's really going on with my students that I can focus my attention on? So I started really focusing on what are their hangups? Why are not, you know how hard it is to get into hygiene school. Why isn't everybody graduating? So when we lose a student, it like breaks my heart. And so I started really focusing on what's going on with each of these students and how can I help and how can I support them? And so when I changed my focus and started really getting into like the psychology of the student and how do I meet their needs, that shifted everything for me. And I started like labeling some of their like perception paralyzers that they have. That's what I labeled them, perception paralyzers. That because they're all capable of graduating. If they can get into dental hygiene school, I feel like they can get through dental hygiene school. And so that really helped me because then I could start having conversations and advising students about some of their challenges, some of their limiting beliefs, some of their, dialogue that they would have with themselves that created their own challenges. And that really helped me overcome that transition. And then everything else was just learning how to be a good educator. Really, how do you show up in the classroom for a Gen Z student because you're not a Gen Z student? And how do you create an environment in the classroom that's inviting and gets rid of all the like dental anxiety, right? So all the same tools that you would use in clinical practice, I started just transitioning that to the classroom, and it became a good challenge for me, and it was so fun. I just absolutely loved it.
Mhm. I have to say, I guess I'm just like spilling all of my secrets today. I wanted to quit hygiene school after the first semester. I started school with a 6-month-old baby, and it just felt too much. I was so overwhelmed, and um,
You were also a mom of like a 6-month-old.
yeah, I had a tiny
So
baby trying to navigate school. I'm not a great learner. I retain information terribly. Um, And the only thing that kept me in that program was my husband. He was like, "Joffrey, you can do this, and you're already committed, and now you already owe 10 grand. So go finish." And
yep.
I needed a cheerleader, and if I didn't have him,
Or is that guilting?
I don't know. It worked. It worked because I stayed and I finished it. And when I didn't believe in myself, he did. And so that was just, I just don't think everybody has somebody like that for them.
Yeah, and that is such an important piece, and that's the other thing is we don't know the story of every student, right? So I just pretend like every student is struggling at a 10. If I just pretend like every student is struggling at a 10, then I know that I'm going to show up in a way that meets their needs. And sometimes they just need you to believe in them. And so that shift from clinical to educator shifted when I changed what my role was. And it took me a little while to change what my role was. Instead of educating patients, now I'm educating students, but the needs were so different because a patient you see for an hour or so every 3, 4, 6 months, and you get to know them over a long span of time. A student you see a lot for 2 to 3 years, and they become your family for a short period of time, and then they leave like they left your practice, and you don't know how they're going to make out. So there's just this really different relationship with students, but the needs are still just as significant as clinical patient care. They need you to be there 100%, and you don't know what every patient needs until you really dissect what their triggers are and what their anxieties are and what their beliefs are and what's keeping them from achieving that health. And with a student, it's that very same thing. What is it that's causing them to have limiting beliefs? Now, Joffrey, people that go to hygiene school with babies, they are next level people. Hats off to you, girl. I couldn't even take care of myself in hygiene school.
No.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, there's nothing more rewarding though, honestly.
My partner in hygiene school for everything was a dad, not a single dad, but a dad of 8. And
no.
worked full. It was Elmer. It's Elmer. You know Elmer, Joffrey.
Oh yeah.
He worked nights and like did our papers at night when he was at work. I was the slacker who was living at home, no kids to worry about, and he would be writing our papers at work, supporting his family. Like, I don't know. I don't think he slept for 2.5 years. I don't think he did. It's just crazy. So yeah, next level, yes. There's people that have extra drive, and those not single parents, but parents are those extra driven people for sure.
Absolutely.
Now, Billie, you also have like a pretty cool motive behind you where you want to change things in the program and make it so much better for students. Would you share some of the things you've implemented into the program or that you have even created for your students?
Oh gosh. Well, I just think if I think of my own journey as a hygienist, dental hygiene school was the hardest thing I ever did. So, without revealing too much about our specific program, I would say that I'm always making changes, thinking about what it was like for me as a student and how can we make it better for the incoming students with things like a balanced curriculum and built-in student supports and built-in remediation early and things like that. Just things that like a wish list. If you just graduated from hygiene school and there was a wish list for you of everything you wish that you had when you were a student, that's what we want to put out there for current students.
I love that so much. You make some very neat study guides, though, for your students and for other students, even at other schools, correct?
I do. That just happened by mistake as well.
Please enlighten us. Tell us more about this.
So I was writing feverishly all these notes because, as you would guess, a lot of my podcast episodes take some studying and take some research and development, especially if it's content that I don't know like the back of my hand that I can just ramble out a 20-minute podcast episode on. And so I was taking all these notes and making all these study guides for myself so that I could record a really quality episode. And I had a student reach out to me and say, hey, this podcast was really great. I'm having a lot of trouble with radiology. Do you have the notes from your episode? And I was like, I certainly do. And that night I went to bed and I was like, I should sell my notes on Etsy. So the next day I Googled Etsy and figured out how to create a site. And so then the Etsy site was born. So now, and it's just as much of a labor of love as the podcast. Mm-hmm. And just when I'm about to quit, somebody will reach out and say, thank goodness for your study guides. I passed my semester or whatever, So yeah, that's another thing that's just kind of blossomed from, stretching yourself outside your comfort zone. And I just look at it as, it's like you can just reach so many more people like you guys You know, it's like, okay, so instead of providing oral health care to one patient at a time, now I'm helping lots and lots of other people become fabulous clinicians so that they can provide those services and care to patients. And you guys are doing the same thing. You're just exponentially reaching more people with your message and your power, which is so awesome. So that's my Etsy site was born from that. And I've thrown on I write dental poems for fun.
What?
I know. And those are
Uh,
on my Etsy site
Are
as
you
well.
going to recite one for us today on the podcast?
Oh, I hope so, Billie.
Oh my
We
goodness.
actually had somebody sing for us on our last podcast, so just saying.
Bar's really high.
Kevin
Oh
talks
my
teeth,
goodness.
man.
Oh my goodness. All right. So while we're talking, I'm going to pull one up. It's one of my favorites. And it's just, I don't know where these poems come from. I guess the universe just throws them into my head every once in a while, and I just write it down feverishly. And then I share it whenever I decide that I'm brave enough to share because, you know, the world will judge you.
Yes.
And I've decided they're going to judge me whether I share it or not. So I might as well just share it
Yes.
because it brings me joy.
I don't think I've ever heard a dental poem. Joffrey, have you ever heard a dental poem?
Mm-mm.
Ladies, you
Okay.
don't know what you're missing.
We're here for it. Listeners,
All right.
heads up.
All right, I'm going to share one of my many poems. And I also, every once in a while, I will post one on Instagram just to keep it light. If I'm having one of those days, I'll just throw a poem on Instagram for people. So this is a poem. I'm just going to pick one of my favorite ones. It's called Advice for Life, a Dental Perspective. Be like enamel, strong and resilient, but still open to be remineralized and strengthened. Believe in your ability to withstand the test of time. You are capable. Be like pulp, soft, but strongly connected to your feelings and source of nutrition. Know that your power comes from within. Be like a tooth, supportive to your neighbors, committed to your purpose, gentle on your opposing partner, and reliable in times of need.
I love everything about this.
Be like this is a dental nerd at
I
her
love it.
core.
I'm crying over here. I love this so much.
Be like gingiva, functional and beautiful, form a protective layer around everything that you hold dear. Believe that you matter. You are fearless. Be like occlusion. Align yourself with others to do the challenging work of the collective. Know that even if you are deviated at times, your work ethic and determination will keep you in alignment with your goals. And the last one is be like a smile, unique and beautiful, healthy and balanced, always remembering that no smile can survive as a single tooth. A smile is meant to be shared with others. It perseveres with consistent small steps, healthy choices, good nutrition, and lots of self love. The end.
These need to be read at every dental hygiene graduation across the country.
I want to print that on the back of a t-shirt, Amanda. That would be so cool. I'm in love with your
That was
poetry.
so good.
I loved
So
it.
good. Not what I was expecting. Better than what I was expecting.
Oh, thank you, ladies. So they're
Yes.
for sale on Etsy.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Honestly,
gosh.
though, I think I would hang that up in my operatory. Like, that's so good.
Good advice for life, you know?
I love it.
Happy one,
You're
too.
so talented, Billie. Thanks
Yes.
for sharing that with us.
Yes. Okay, what is your Etsy shop for people that are like, okay, I need this now?
Oh, it's the Happy Flosser RDH on Etsy.
The Happy
They can-
Flosser RDH.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so you have your poems, you have your reviews, study guides. Do you have anything else on your Etsy store?
Oh, there's a couple t-shirts and maybe like journals and stuff like that. That's all I've gotten to. I have such a huge list of things to get on there. I think I only have like 75 items at this point.
Only only
That's
75.
amazing.
I know.
Like, and students can get like hardcover books if they don't want just digital downloads. They can get the hard copy stuff. So I've been hard at work with this stuff, and it's really it's been a good challenge for me. But the poems are my favorite.
You are
That
so
was
creative.
that was very fun, and like it all made sense and was so like, yep, uh-huh, so good.
Well spoken like a true dental nerd, Amanda.
Thanks for calling me out. I guess I didn't share any truths, so there's that. So, fun.
Well, it takes one to know one.
Well, it sounds like we're gonna have to hang out at RDH under one roof because you're gonna be there, correct?
I'm going to be there. I'm so pumped. I'm really excited to like I just want to see like real people. Like I've met so many people networking online. I'm so excited to go.
How? So this is your first under one roof event?
Yes, I'm a newbie.
It's so fun.
Once you go, you always go. This
Yeah.
is Amanda and I's third year going in a row.
It's awesome.
We
It's like
are
escalating every year for us.
hooked on this. Yes, it definitely. You're gonna love it. And we definitely have to connect while you're there.
Yes.
Now, you are actually going early for the RDH Evolution event, correct?
I am.
Such a game changer. Such a game changer.
I'm
Okay,
excited to go.
Amanda and I had an amazing time last year at that event.
Yes.
And I recommend it to every
Everyone.
entrepreneur hygienist we meet or talk to on the podcast. Like, if we're done recording, guaranteed, I'm like, you need to go to Evolution. Like,
Mhm.
if you want
Yes.
to help yourself, do it. It'll be so well worth it.
Yeah.
And we were talking about manifesting things earlier in our conversation. Amanda is quite good at manifesting things as well.
Ooh.
I didn't even know. That's
So,
my truth. I
Mhm.
apparently manifest things.
Mhm. Amanda and I last year, and you'll see this at Under One Roof. They have a RDH community connection program, and it almost looks like just like a big poster kind of board, but it's pretty large, and it has a bunch of photos on it of all the members of this program. And Amanda said to me, next year, our pictures are going to be on that poster. And they are going to be on that poster this year. And so we were so honored to be
Yeah.
chosen. Like, you're just kind of selected to be an RDH Community
Yeah.
Connect member. And I just did not see that coming. And I'm really glad Amanda manifested that because I've really enjoyed the experience.
Maybe Jackie Sanders was behind us and like heard me say that. So maybe that's what
Oh
happened.
my gosh. I love it. Well, when you stretch yourself outside your comfort zone, you start getting a little more daring with the things that you say. So there you go, Amanda.
Growth happens outside of your comfort zone, right? So
Yeah. I haven't been in my comfort zone for like 8 years.
that's good. That's healthy.
And one of the things, Billie, you plan on doing that's outside your comfort zone is some speaking. Is that still happening?
Oh yeah, bring it. That's on my wish list. I would like to speak at the educators conference. So that's happening for the first time this year under one roof. So I plan to be on the list for next year.
How did you hear about the educator portion? Just the emails that they had sent out, or do you have like a connection with all of your online socialization?
I think it was through a podcast. It might have been Jackie Sanders who spoke about it in a podcast I was listening to with her.
Oh, okay.
I think that was the first time I heard about it. I mean, it's everywhere, right? So, but this was the first year they're doing the educators. I was really pumped about that, but I'm not sure what I'll present or speak about. I'm sure it's going to be something fantastic and super interesting. No
I
idea.
know. I
Putting it out
have
there.
the honor this year to sit in the room for the educator event. Signature Dental Partners, the DSO I work for, is going to be one of the sponsors. So we get to I get to be present, and I get to tell the educators a little bit about the presentation that I bring to the students. And I am so excited to just be present in that room, because the speaker lineup that anything under one roof related is amazing. And
Yeah.
so it's almost like, and I will be starstruck when I see you speak next year, but when I see some of them, I feel like
Yes,
I'm
we
in the
know
presence of
her.
a celebrity. Like, oh my gosh, it's Dr. Joy.
Oh my gosh, I love Dr. Joy.
So, I really hope I get to be a little fly on the wall again next year, so I can hear you speak there.
Yeah, I figure if you're gonna throw yourself in the arena, you might as well throw yourself in the right one, right? So why not?
That's a
So I'm
truth
gonna just
bomb.
yeah, I'm gonna bounce off Amanda's manifestation, and I'm gonna just throw myself there. I'm not sure what it is I'll talk about, but I'm sure it's gonna be something absolutely fabulous.
Oh,
So
that's so fun. So have you been out west before? So you're from New England area.
I have never been past the Mississippi River. I went to St. Louis, Missouri last year for an open convention. That is the furthest I've been, so I'm really excited.
Denver's going to be spectacular. You'll get to see real mountains.
Oh,
I'm biased. I am from like the Mountain West area, and my husband's from Missouri, and he always is like, "Well, let's move back." And I'm like, "You married a desert dweller. I need mountains, not hills, mountains."
yeah, I've heard they're beautiful. My husband's been out there. I have not. So I'm looking forward to like the entirety of the event, really.
Yeah. It'll be a great one. It'll be a great one for sure.
And Amanda, I don't know if Joffrey told you, I have to have her come to our school to speak to our students because we are the only dental hygiene program. I knew New Hampshire's kind of little, right? It's a little state. It's bigger than Rhode Island, though, so we've got that.
That counts.
It does. So poor Rhode Island. But we only have one dental hygiene program, so Joffrey's just going to have to come see us.
And I can't wait. I'm so excited.
She did tell me that. And I mean, it makes sense being it's such a small state compared, but I was like, that's crazy. One school for the whole state.
Yep.
But I mean, I'm from New Mexico and there used to only be 2 schools for the entire state. But yeah.
Wow.
So it's now
How
there's
many
4.
students does the class take, Billie?
Yeah.
Around 40, 42 students. We have a good sized class.
That's a big one.
Yeah, we have a 25 chair clinic. It's a beautiful facility. And we also have a dental assisting program. So there's just a lot of students going at the same time. So although it's only one, we're small but mighty.
Wild.
Amanda, do you recall how many students were in your program in New Mexico?
Oh, yeah. There were 24 of us.
24? Okay.
Yeah. 24. And one person was always on rotation. You would either go to healthcare for the homeless or you would do a school-based program that day. So at least once a semester, you would be out. But yeah, there was 24 chairs. I believe there was 24 chairs in the pod. And somebody was always on x-ray duty because it was not digital. So you still had to like process everything. So there was one student just processing everything for everybody.
We did the same thing though. We had the processing too. We did digital for like 1 week.
What? That's crazy.
But I was going to tell you, my class had 60 students. And
that's insanity to me.
I went and spoke at a school and there was maybe like 8. And I'm like, there's only 8 in here? I'm like,
oh, that was the New Mexico one? That was the other one?
No. Actually, I don't remember
where San Juan or Las Cruces?
I don't remember now.
But I thought, so many.
Wow. How are we going to serve the population with 8 in here?
Everyone counts. Everyone counts.
Oh, absolutely. I'm like, we need more than 8. And
well, Billie, you'll be in for a treat because she brings food, she brings giveaways, and a really great presentation, most importantly. So I've only heard wonderful things and seen wonderful things.
Yeah, well, we've got to help her reach that goal, you know? There's a lot of stakes.
I gotta get to every state. I gotta get to every state. And oh man, it is fun. I love going and speaking to the students. I love students in it in a way like I would like describe how I care for patients. Like kind of like what Billie was saying. Like you're there, they have they're similar needs, but you care for them the same. And I love like the passion that you can see behind them when you're speaking to them. And I'm sure Billie can see it too, right? Like you see their passion, you see like they're engaged in what you're saying and they're following along, like they're liking what's in front of them. And it just makes me feel great to do that for them, because sometimes it doesn't quite feel the same reward in clinic when you have someone who's like a little grumpy or something, and so I am getting a bigger return on like that joy feeling, that exchange between the students. So I really like the students a lot.
Yeah, I have to agree. Obviously, I love them. So, orientation is next Friday. It's like Christmas to me. They open up all their instruments and they have no idea what they're
Already?
looking at. Yeah, so orientation is next Friday. It's like one of my favorite days of the year because they're all just they don't know each other. So I do a couple of different get to know you games, which it's just so cute to watch them just all interact with each other and learn like where you're from, all these different things about them, and they're just so excited and nervous, and it's like a lot of anxiety and fear, but they just create community so quickly because they realize that they all have a lot in common.
Okay, fun story. This will be my confession. I missed my orientation for hygiene school. I did not get that email, and all I remember was I was so mad I did not get to pick my colors for my instruments. So I wound up with like yellow and orange. And everybody else had like pretty colors, but nope. Like stupid yellow and
That's
orange.
a real problem, Amanda.
I don't care what else I missed out on. I have the ugly colored instruments. Dang it.
These are very important things.
It was a detail. Yeah. And I remember Professor Nathy was not happy with me. And I was just like, I did not see an email that said anything about an orientation. And I'm like fairly like, I wanted to be there for everything, obviously. Didn't see it. So
Okay, I have to
there it
tell
is.
you something then, Amanda, because when I started hygiene school, I had never owned a pair of scrubs before. And so I really just guessed my size. I didn't know scrubs could run large, like very large sometimes. So I think I ordered a medium scrub top. They were the Cherokee brand. They were very like unisex type scrubs. And
So boxy.
they were drowning me. And I wasn't working. I did not dare complain and like order smaller ones. So I wore gigantic scrubs through the whole program.
Maybe you should start stress eating when you were.
Oh my gosh.
I see photos and I'm like, oh my gosh, I hated those scrubs so much and they didn't even fit me well. And
we had specific university issued scrubs, so they were university colors. So we had black and red. So one set of black, one set of red. I hated that red so much.
hey, Amanda and Billie, mine were khaki. And this is when the year I went to hygiene school was when Orange is the New Black came out. And if you guys ever saw that show, all the prisoner women wear khaki scrubs. So it just made this transition like we were stepping into prison every day.
Our master's students were so many of our professors, and they were all like, that was their pet project, was getting away from those horrible khaki colored scrubs And so they finally talked the director, Demetra, into red and black scrubs, and they were so proud of it. And so they were mad that we were complaining about red scrubs. They were like, do you know what we had to wear? So yes, perspective. But yeah, khaki scrubs, horrible. Horrible.
Billie, do you like, what was your scrub color?
Oh, it was the coral blue and teal, and I made the mistake of ordering a style I liked. I thought as long as I had the right color, I was totally fine. And the professor corrected me on day one that we will not be wearing those scrubs again in this clinic. So I had to go buy new scrubs.
What was the style? So risque.
I had never worn scrubs either, like Joffrey said, except for, like I had just regular, I don't know. I think they had a cuff on the bottom or something really risky.
That
They
ankle.
were not allowed. That
No.
ankle.
Wow.
But
I didn't know that about you, Billie. I'm changing my perspective. What else do you have on your Etsy store? Just kidding.
I should put some scrubs on there. In all seriousness, the director said, I just tried to blend in, and I started right off at the beginning with the wrong scrubs. So I was like, okay, so this isn't working for me. I'm not blending in very well. Because that was the advice I got from my senior buddy. Just try to keep a low profile and blend in. And I haven't been able.
What kind of advice is that?
Oh no. I haven't been able to do that my whole life, so it didn't really work well for me in school.
Oh gosh. You came out okay.
I did all right. Well, did you get any good advice from your senior buddy? Because that was all she gave me. That's all I had.
Prior to okay, so it was come graduation, or I'm starting my new job, my very first job, and I reached out to her, like, any advice for my first day of work, and her advice was just clean the anteriors really well and the distals of the last molar. You'll be fine. So, 4 teeth down here and 4 molars. She's like, focus on those 8. You're solid. But let the record know, I did clean all the teeth. But that was the advice I was given.
That's so funny.
Amanda, did you get any advice?
I had the privilege of knowing my big sister for years. We went to our community college together to do all of our prerequisites. So we commuted together while we were taking some prereqs. So we lived in the same town. So we knew each other pretty well. I feel like I was that student that never asked for help or never asked for advice. I just didn't. And it's not that she wasn't there for me or anything. I was just I just have to struggle through it. So not advice I would give anybody, but no, I didn't ask for advice.
The perspective of being a hygiene student is totally warped. I remember there was one individual in the senior class, the class ahead of me, and I just thought, this girl is perfect. She speaks so well. She's so likable. Patients are going to love her. And I'm like, she's going to be an amazing provider. And that's what I thought in my head about this particular person. And I'm like, this person, they're going to just be amazing, is what I thought. And I'm like, then we had the opportunity. She temped in my office once, years later, and she barely said any words to the patients and was just zip, in and out, and wasn't making conversations or doing much oral hygiene education. And I just thought, I got this all wrong. What else did I think wrong in hygiene school? Because in my mind, that person was so bubbly and just so social and likable, and all the other students liked them, and they were just
it just didn't translate through to patient care.
Yeah, and then that's not how they practiced at all. And I thought, wow, I totally got that wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my student brain just totally warped. What I thought was not real.
I think my brain was worse when I finished. So when I started working for the dentist, I still remember he came in for the first patient, and I thought he was going to do what my faculty did, was check for calculus, check my probing, and off you go. I didn't understand a doctor exam. It's just, he came in, and I was like, what is he doing? He's looking at the radiographs, he's looking at the fillings and such, and he's looking at everything that I was like, I'm not prepared to say one word. I'm just going to stand here and I'm just going to be perfectly quiet because I have no idea what's going on. And then he left and I was like, oh my gosh, he didn't even check for calculus. What is happening right now? What if I miss some? What if there's still calculus on the distal of 12? What am I going to do? And so I did make it a charge of mine to make sure that our graduates know how to do a doctor exam, because that was my own personal struggle. Was I don't know what to do for a doctor exam. So our students graduate with that as a competency.
That's wise.
My very first job, Billie, they asked me in the working interview, Joffrey, can you do double hygiene? And in my mind, I'm thinking, are you kidding me? I can't even do single. Like, I've never, like, what kind of, so, but that's what I was thinking. But what I said was, oh, of course I can.
Yeah, sure.
And there we have a glimpse into Joffrey. Nope,
of course I
but
can.
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Joffrey, you're at both hands and feet head first.
Yep.
Very true.
I love that.
I know. I'm like, but yeah, really, the thoughts in my head were like, I've never even done single. Like, I don't know what you're asking, why you would ask me this question.
That's so funny.
Oh, goodness.
My first day I temped, and I didn't tell the doctor it was my first day. It was so bad. So bad.
That's probably like
wise.
Good choice, actually.
Yeah, not setting yourself up for failure. There are doctors out there that would specifically pick on you for that, instead of like, oh, okay, let's take it easy on you, instead of like, let's nitpick.
I figured I was temping, so I didn't know where anything was anyway. So I just looked like I just didn't know where anything was. Not that I didn't know what I was doing, but I certainly didn't know how to do a doctor exam. So.
You guys, the only thing that saved me with doing double hygiene was a really kind hygiene assistant. And I just said to her, please tell me where to go. She said, okay, I'll tell you where to go, Joffrey. And she kept me in line.
Oh my gosh. So she really did double hygiene fresh out
She
of
did,
school?
yeah. And yes, and she nailed it, obviously. But
I really did. My first job was double hygiene, and it was the assistant who saved my bacon and helped me figure things out. That's one part of my presentation. I tell the students like what it was like those first few weeks get out of school and what it felt like and how quickly those feelings go away. And every single day gets a little easier than the one before it. And before you know it, you could scale with your eyes closed. Like, you'll be just fine.
It's really good, solid advice, because that's really what happens once you get yourself into like a groove of what you're doing, where you're doing it, how you're doing it, and who you're doing it to. You could do it with your eyes closed. We just choose not to because we spend too much on our loops.
Yeah.
you are not wrong.
Oh my gosh. I can't imagine. I love my loops.
Yes, I think you should write a poem about your double hygiene out of dental hygiene school days.
Challenge accepted. This is going to be coming. I have a homework assignment. I think you ought to give Amanda one too.
I want Amanda to manifest where you'll be in 5 years.
Oh, there we go. I'll manifest. You do the poetry, Dory.
Okay, double hygiene poem. It's coming up. I'll share it on Instagram. I'll share it everywhere. My poem.
I love it.
I have not written a poem in a very long time, but I will spend some quality time on this assignment.
I love it. I didn't mean to give you both a homework assignment. I'm off
I
for
can
the summer.
manifest. I'm fine with my assignment.
Me too. I love a challenge.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, ask me to do something, and I it's something in me where I just have to say yes. Like I can't. I have
Doesn't
the
back
FOMO.
down.
I cannot miss an opportunity.
Well, I will graciously bow out and be like, "Oh, thank you for that." No, but Joffrey would be like, "Yes. When do you want it by?"
Mhm.
So like, no, not how this one's gonna work.
That's good balance for both of
Mhm.
you. That's good. So I
Oh,
try to do growth and balance. Growth and balance.
you know what, Billie? That Amanda and I are like the yin to the yang. Like you could ask us like 2 toothbrushes, what's your favorite brand? And we would both pick different ones.
Yes,
And what
coffee and tea.
Yep,
Yeah.
a beverage, a color, like anything. Like you asked us a question and we would gave us 2 options. We would 100% always pick the opposite from each other.
Typically.
But it's not about like you like a different one than what I like. Amanda and I have the thinking of like how cool we both like those things.
Yeah.
And so it's like an appreciation for one another. Like we love that we like different things. Or I personally love that Amanda does not like everything that I like.
Yeah.
Yes.
The synergy is very complementary.
I
Mhm.
love that. Do you each have your own mantra? Oh,
Yes,
I don't
but
know
give
if
me I have to think for a second what
I
mine
don't know
is
if I
because
have a
I do
mantra.
have it.
I'm a live, laugh, love. Just kidding.
I love that Joffrey can't put her finger on hers.
What's funny is I wrote it in an article. Like I have a mantra and I've written it and I've shared it with people. I just need a second to think of what it is.
I don't have a mantra.
Okay, here it is. Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mm,
I
okay.
love that.
That's
That
really
is what
good.
it is. That is what I try to live by. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. And by doing that, it has opened up so many opportunities for myself.
Agreed.
See, even our mantras are so far from each other.
Okay, I just made mine up. But I wouldn't say it's far off.
Oh, that's great. Well,
It is.
mine is little by little, a little becomes a lot. And I think that's really just my whole life. You just take one giant leap forward every day and just try to be better than you were the day before, and you'll be surprised where you can end up.
I love that.
The smallest things can make the biggest difference.
It's
Yeah.
true.
And some days I only have just enough for a little step. So that's why it's little by little. And other days I'll take a couple of steps at a time. So it's all by choice, but every day one step forward.
I love it, Billie. I love it. You know, there's something so special about you in particular, but your journey and your story and how it has just grown and grown and like it just hasn't stopped yet. Like there's still so many more opportunities in this RDH world that you are going to conquer and then teach us all how to do it when you're done. And that's probably going to be teach us how to do what you
available on
do.
an Etsy shop.
And I love that so much because there is that misconception that if you're a hygienist, you live and die in your operatory, and that is just so not true.
Yes. Once I got out of when I was in the operatory, you're just so in the zone and you're just so busy doing your thing, doing your patient care that you almost, well, I shared with you, Joffrey, I think I was on year 7 when I said to a patient, have you had any changes in your health at all since the last time you were in? And the patient said, you just asked me that. And I said, oh my goodness. Oh, I'm so sorry. And that was the day that I realized that I was just kind of on autopilot and I needed to consider that I needed to be more present and really start thinking about what am I doing and why am I doing it? And that was when I started my journey of, okay, I'm going to go back to school and then I'm going to get my master's degree and this, that, and the other thing. And I do think that it's easy to just kind of get stuck in the operatory and forget that you're on a pursuit to figuring out what you're passionate about and what your purpose is. And you can't really figure that out until you master something, and then give yourself the space to get uncomfortable and grow. And that's where the beauty happens. And so I'm still working on that. I'm such a work in progress. I have so much room for growth. There's so much more out there.
No, but what you're doing for the profession is incredible. And it's so inspiring, Billie.
Oh, thank you. I would say the same thing right back at the two of you. I'm just appreciative of your time. I think you guys are fabulous. I laugh out loud sometimes when I listen to your podcast driving, because I have an hour and a half drive to work.
Oh, goodness.
And so I feel like I've got multiple master's degrees from podcast listening in my 7 years as an educator, just from all the podcasts I've listened to, because I'm all over the spectrum. But I do listen to a dental hygiene podcast every day. And you guys, yours just makes me laugh. I crack up some of the stuff that you guys talk about. I'm just like, oh my God, I need to know these people. Like, I feel like I need to go to Utah. I've never had that on my radar.
You're welcome to
Billie,
anytime.
if you've
Live,
heard of
laugh, love for real over here.
If you've listened to a couple episodes, could you share with us one of your favorites?
It's a hard one. Well, I really liked the one you just published with the girl who has the restaurant. What is her name?
Oh, Spencer.
Yes, Spencer. Oh,
yes.
I was like, who has the restaurant? Oh gosh.
Yes.
Because she was getting so hung up on the dental jargon, and I'm like, do we really talk a lot of dental terms? I don't really think we talk a lot of dental terms, but the stuff just kind of oozes out of us, and it's our natural dialogue. And
Yes.
she was just so cute talking about Sjogren's syndrome. Love that. Because that's just not talked about enough. I actually had notes to do a podcast episode on Sjogren's syndrome. And I was just like, it was so awesome to hear her personal story. And one of the things I really liked was that you, Joffrey, admittedly said, oh my gosh, I was just thinking about the mouth. And you just like embarked on the whole body. And we're so guilty of that. Even though we want to talk about the whole body, we're so focused. And nurses have that same guilty problem. They think about the body. And it's all about this collaborative effort and having those conversations, and then admitting that, wow, I didn't even think about it that way, that perspective shift. That's just helping so many people. That's just one example. I loved her story. I loved your reaction and banter back and forth with her about it. And the fact that she wasn't a dental person and she was sharing a really personal story about her life. I just loved the whole thing. It was good.
I'm so glad I love that you picked that one, because that was kind of I'm lost for words because the truth is, Billie, Spencer is my sister.
Oh,
and I didn't say that in that episode.
Oh my gosh, I just wanted to know her more in the episode. So you touched, I don't know if it was the questions or the conversation or just the way that it went, but you were able to really spark that needing to know more about her and needing to know more about Sjogren's itself, and really what her life struggle was as far as around the field of dentistry. And I think we sometimes miss the mark in that. And I've had a couple of patients with Sjogren's that I just personally felt so loyal to. And when I left to become an educator, I was literally like stalking the new hygienist saying, make sure you take care of this one, like, because of their Sjogren's.
And I have to tell you, Billie, Spencer listens to every single podcast episode that Amanda and I put out.
Going to be so excited.
And yeah, she's going to love hearing her own shout out here. But it was her idea. She told me and Amanda, she's like, I love your podcast, but you don't have any real people on it. And she was saying like,
And I'm like, lots of real people.
She was like, you need to create a perspective and tell somebody's story who's going through the things that you guys treat and deal with. And so it was her idea. And so now we have other guests lined up to share their stories. The next one we have is a buddy of mine, and he's going to share Tourette's and how that has just broken so many of his teeth down. And so that's going to be a really fun one as well. But that was all Spencer's idea. She was like, you need to start telling patient stories.
Yeah, Joffrey, I think you guys are on to something because, I've listened to a whole bunch of your episodes, but that one just, I sat in my driveway when I got to my house to listen to the last 5 minutes of it because I wanted to hear the whole thing. So if that says anything, I mean, I'm a busy mom with kids and I've got a podcast myself and all these different things. The world is pulling me in different directions. And I'm sitting in my driveway like I'm listening to a romance novel and the girl's about to break up with him. It's just, I just had to hear the last 5 minutes of the show. So I think you're onto something there. It was nice that she wasn't a dental person, but yet she had a lot of value to bring to the dental profession. So it was awesome.
Oh, thank you. And
so
Billie,
much.
I think that's exactly what I needed to hear was that someone listened, that somebody appreciates the time and effort that Amanda put in and I put into this, because sometimes we're guilty of that imposter syndrome too. Like, what am I doing with the podcast? Like, we're investing so much time into this. Like, are we creating value? And you just highlighted, like, we are, and we're supposed to keep making these episodes.
You are. And I was intentional about sharing that because I just recorded a podcast saying the same thing, just when I'm about to quit and say, you know what? And it always happens at the 0s and 5s. I'm like, okay, 150 episodes. I think that's enough. I think I can call it. And then a student will reach out to me and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to do 50 more. That's what you do. You have to know that people appreciate what you're doing, that it brings value and it makes a difference in their life. And if you're doing those 3 things, then you're doing the right thing.
Oh, thank you, Billie.
So much. Oh, who's interviewing you here? Gosh.
All right, Billie.
Well, a podcaster knows that.
Yeah.
A podcaster knows that.
Okay, we always close with the same 2 questions, so I'm going to ask the first one. What piece of advice do you wish you could go back and give yourself as a new grad?
You're going to figure it out. It doesn't seem like you're going to figure it out, but it's all going to come to you when it needs to. And I didn't think I was going to figure anything out. When I graduated, I was like, oh my gosh, they gave me this license. I don't know what I'm doing. My resume's a lie. Just believe in yourself because you got this. That's what I would say to my younger self when I graduated, that I didn't hear other people saying.
Okay, last question. What do you wish you would have learned in school that took you years to learn as an RDH?
Well, the doctor exam we've already covered, that's for sure. That did not take me years to learn, though. I really think listening skills of really hearing, because I spent so many years trying to educate patients on what I thought they needed to know, when if I had turned the tables back and realized that I was the one that needed to learn about them, each individual patient that sat in my chair, if I had taken the time to listen and hear who they really were, hear what their struggles were, hear why they were presenting the way that they were in the chair, and just sat back and listened more instead of just trying to come up with a solution, really hearing them, I think I would have made bigger strides with each patient a lot sooner. It took me a long time to recognize that I needed to just listen more instead of sharing all of my knowledge, because I thought in school that's what you were supposed to do, is learn all this stuff that you're going to now teach your patient. And it's really about this interesting dance of listening and developing an understanding of really who they were and who they are and what their real needs are, because it's not always about learning how to brush properly. There's so much more to it. And that's what I wished. That took me a lot longer to learn than I'll admit. So.
I completely agree with you on that one. And I would say my clinical mantra right now is you meet the patient where they're at. Not everybody needs that same advice, but listening, knowing them, knowing their situation, you can help them more. Not just, well, let me tell you how to modify bass right now, okay? I will tell you. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't. You get so much further with them in helping them down the path to health if you take the time to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And that took me, way longer to learn.
Agreed. Well, what a coincidence you're in the position where you can change those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank goodness.
Oh, Billie,
Grateful.
thank you so much for joining us tonight. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast.
I love that you ladies took the risk of being completely scriptless and off the cuff and just let it happen. I love it. It was great.
I appreciate it too. I think it was a great episode tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you